Let's get into a couple of topics today. We will be covering both some of the earnings, but really a bigger narrative here of what's happening in crypto, because there's a lot of things that are connected to many of these publicly traded companies that we'll show. I want to thank our sponsor, and that is Tangem. If you guys are looking at going into self-custody, one of the things you want to do, of course, is get a great wallet. And this is one of those self-custody wallets that I think make a difference. And of course, the way it works, it's got 3 cards. You can use a 2-card set, but a 3-card set is the way to go. Works in conjunction with an app, and the app is super slick. A lot of new features, including swap function inside the app itself. So you've got that all available to you. Just click that 3-card set and use our link. It does help the channel out. All right, so a couple of things I want to hit on, and I want to go to this first clip. This first clip is just talking about the IPOs that are happening right now and the tie-in to crypto. Listen to the first one.
Finally, a major day for sports betting. Flutter, the parent company of betting giant FanDuel, officially started trading on the New York Stock Exchange. Flutter's revenue has surged nearly 300% in that time period, while average NFL viewership has seen a 13% pop. Basically, that this listing, which is secondary right now, but they're going to take it to the shareholders and ask them to make the U.S. the primary listing, that it could be a real catalyst. DraftKings shares went up like 3% on the day. Does first-comer status matter where investing in a gambling stock is concerned?
The addition of another quality name raises the entire level of the group.
We're now just a few weeks away from what's going to be a great Super Bowl, and the betting numbers are incredible. So you combine all that, and it's just created a little bit of investor euphoria.
You know, all the money will go to either one of these 2 listings. Is that the way to think about it?
I think it's a validation of the market. And what you're seeing here is online gambling, either iGaming or online sportsbook, really growing in the market. And it's going to probably triple or quadruple over the next 3 years.
All right, so as you can see, a lot happening in the bet cycles of where sports betting is going. And of course, when you think about sports betting, one of the next evolutions is going to be the integration of NFTs. If you look at the markets right now by FanDuel, you can kind of see it's the traditionals within NFL football, etc., that goes into it. And then you compare this to DraftKings. Well, some of the ones that you want to keep your eye on with DraftKings is things like esports, which FanDuel's not have. And remember, too, that we've started to see a lot more in the way of NFT integration with what's been happening with DraftKings. So there's quite a bit here that I think you guys needed to pay attention to, because it does start to really showcase an opportunity here for crypto. All right, so one of the things they're hitting on NBA Top Shot, tied into Flow with Dapper Labs, Candy Digital, NFL Day, the team behind NBA Top Shot, and then they were talking about the NHL not launching a marketplace. That's actually done now. But the big note here is NFTs will undoubtedly open up an exciting new experiences for the modern day sports fan. So again, just an opportunity with the fact that these IPOs are growing. We're starting to see massive movements. You saw MGM Bet. Of course, we know about ESPN Bet and their deal with Barstool when that started to take place under Disney. All right, so here is the NHL's breakaway marketplace, which rides on Polygon. Their latest drop, Guardians of the Net, now available, so you can start doing NFT trades there within that. I think when you look at these kinds of strategy moves that many of these sports industries are starting to make, they're starting to put together the strategy they need to get into for NFTs to be integrated. So a lot moving down the road. And it all really depends on where betting is going. I feel like that's going to be one of the driving forces. One to watch out there currently that is a token that is and has the betting component within it, of course, is Rollbit. We've debuted this one before on our channel. This is one to watch right now. Nice little spike here in the last day. If you go to the 7, you can kind of see the movement here with Rollbit. So quite a bit of action there. And I think we're going to continue to see this into Super Bowl week because of the activity there, obviously, with Super Bowl betting for sure. Further on X, I want to get into this right here. This was Mark Cuban doing an AMA, favorite crypto project outside Bitcoin ETH. Polygon was his selection there. And remember, there's a lot that is connected to sports and Polygon. And obviously, you know, Cuban, a sports fanatic, you know, former, I guess, owner of the Dallas Mavericks. So the fact that he likes it, I still think is just more validity in that market and where it's going. Robbie Ferguson also announcing right here, Immutable zkEVM mainnet now early access is live. This is a big deal because this is what we've been waiting on for Immutable, and they're there now. So big congrats on the Polygon Labs team for a huge effort. Now they're getting ready to this launch. 260 plus games are building, so could see some pretty big activity within that. Let me go to a clip real quick to kind of give you guys a framework of what's happening there. Let's go to that clip.
For too long, building a Web3 game has felt like trying to build a house, but without the right tools. Game builders have been forced to try to build high-quality games on general-purpose chains. Introducing Immutable zkEVM, a chain specifically built for games that enables scale, speed, and familiar user experiences. When you build with Immutable zkEVM, you get decreased development costs, new revenue streams, gas-free interactions for gamers, and a better player experience. And when combined with the Immutable product suite, it's everything you need to build a great game all in one place. Unlock the next player experience. Build your game on Immutable zkEVM.
All right, so big news there, of course, and I think this will only accelerate what's happening with IMX. But more importantly, I think the key here is there's a bit of a battleground being set right now for gaming. This will be one of the blockchains that we think going forward could really benefit here. Transak also partners with Visa, which is enabling crypto withdrawals. And all of this is really tied to what's happening with IMX. I've got a clip here for you. Listen in. All right, so for you guys listening in on the podcast, I know that was just a little bit of a music bed there, but mainly what it was showing was the Transak and Immutable partnership in being able to essentially cash out within your MetaMask wallet or wallets like that, that enables you to do that without going to an exchange. So that's a pretty big advancement, you know, to your debit card, to a Visa card that is moving in this direction. And we've talked about Visa before quite a bit here on the channel. Is they're one of the few companies, especially in the finance sector, that is really starting to put this whole model together around blockchain, NFTs, what we'll see in the way of Web3, gaming, all of that is starting to center around Visa. Obviously, we talked earlier about Visa's move here recently with their loyalty platform. BlockV was one of the big projects that, of course, was driving that. So you have to really pay attention to how this is playing out. And these are not, you know, companies that are insignificant. These are everyday household companies. So a big deal. Here was Transak's post on X, launch of Immutable X zkEVM mainnet, now game changer for the gaming industry. They're proud to be part of this exciting journal. That was just showing you kind of the example of how it can be used in partnership with Visa, which is a big part of where this is going. Another tweet I want to hit on right here, of course, is Magic Eden. They launched their wallet, so now this is all available, and you can do instant cross-chain swaps, NFT portfolio management, ordinals, BRC20, all that good stuff. So this is another reason that we're continuing to see advancements in this area. And if you look at some of the perks that they're going to be dropping into this, this is all built in to Magic Eden's new wallet. So another great reason to kind of jump into where this is going. All right, so let me jump over to Avalanche's testnet just to show you the potential of a single game. So this is Pulsar right here running, and I'm going to try to hover over that so you guys can see it. I don't know if you can see that right there. Let me zoom in on that a little bit there. All right, so there's 2.4 million transactions. This happened on the 29th. Now remember, there was a little bit of a snafu that they had initially, so there was a little bit of a pent-up demand over the weekend, and they got it launched. But that's the point of being on these testnets. But the real issue here, if you go to this next tab, we'll take a look. Here is the current network right now on Avalanche. And let me kind of zoom in on that one right here as we zoom in right there on those transactions. Almost 1 million transactions, same day. So what we're getting is 2.5 times what the entire subnet is operating on for. So this is the potential of where this can go. And this is very significant because of the capacity of what we might see with NASDAQ in the future, tying into everything from real world assets to IPOs, et cetera, that tie into the blockchain going forward. So very important. All right, so here's Jason Brink from Gala, and they launched their Gala chain. So they're basically trying to compete now in a way, I guess, for devs, much like IMX is doing for game devs. So 180 million transactions all time. Here's an example of Pulsar's total transactions. This is just one game versus, and this happened over a span of about 3 months and still has not gone live. So we're going to see quite a bit of difference between what you see in all-time example there versus what we've seen already on the Avalanche ecosystem going forward. All right, just to give you guys a framework of how big this market is. This is the 6% of annual growth, 1.75 rate of the world GDP, basically 2.5 times USDP or US GDP growth. So basically gaming revenues, if you look at worldwide video gaming revenues, you can see that mobile right there in that 10. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure and come over to the YouTube channel so you can kind of get all these visuals. But that is the gaming growth we're seeing. And this excludes Web3 and NFTs. And then you see that little pink right there at the top, that's VR, which is probably going to start really making its way. So you can see the potential here. It's coming, as our team would say. It's coming. Get ready. We're going to see some big movements, I think, in the next 18 months. All right, another thing I want to hit on here, this is Chris Dixon from A16Z, kind of talking about what you need to pay attention to as you're watching this transformation happen. Listen in.
Look, I've been doing this a long time and have been through many cycles. Someone was asking me today about interest rates and because a lot of these theories are that low interest rates help venture capital. Microsoft and Apple were started in the 70s. I think they had, 10%. Didn't they have 10%? At some point they had 15, maybe early 80s, but 20% interest rates. The dot-com era, the 90s, interest rates were 5%-ish or something. Innovation just tends to move on a separate cycle. It's more about what's changing in the underlying tech. The iPhone came out in 2007, the App Store in 2008. That was right when the financial crisis happened. It turned out in retrospect, that was a great time to start a company or to invest in startups.
Yeah.
And financially it didn't look like it. If you look at it as, wow, we're now carrying around internet connected supercomputers in our pocket, it's a good time. Right? So,
well said.
So my lesson has been focus on the fundamentals, look at the innovation, look at the technology. I think that we're entering an era where you have blockchains, you have AI, you have VR, self-driving cars. There's just a whole long list of exciting things. You could almost argue that this is the culmination of, in many ways, 70 years of computing is sort of all coming together now.
So, Dixon, I think hits it on the head there, is that the innovation does pace it just dances to a different tune. And that's what Tech Path is all about. We focus on innovative tech. Blockchain happens to be one of the leading factors. And when you look at what's happening in gaming, you look at what we will see in securities, real world assets, the idea of tokenized everything, this is an innovation that is resetting the table. And I think that's where a lot of people are missing the point. And if you just look at the earnings week right now that's happening, you've got Apple, Amazon, Meta, all of this is happening right now. These are companies that are multi-billion, if not trillion-dollar companies, all of which began, just like what Dixon was talking about, in an era in which there was a lot of challenges, just like what we're dealing with right now within our own market, including what is considered kind of somewhat tame interest rates compared to, say, the 1980s. So I think he's right, and I think that's the whole point, is that once that blockchain is proven, especially in the financial sector, and you tie in all of these big companies like we talked about with DraftKings, what we talked about with FanDuel, where big sports betting is going, gaming is going, and you tie all this together, you start to see the innovative pathway that is right in front of us right now. And if you look at Meta, just to give an example right here, I'm looking at the 5-year, but look at this little range right here between 23 and where we are now, 1 year later. I'm going to zoom in on that for you guys just to see. This is the kind of growth we're talking about. And are we going to see a continued melt up based on the GDP numbers, what we're seeing right now in consumer confidence, all of the things that are tied into what's happening in the technology sector, AI, which of course is leading it, and then blockchain? What does that mean? Are we maybe not going to see that hard landing? That's the question mark I think that everybody's looking for going forward. I just think, as Dixon was talking, All of this dances to a different tune. This is the thing you've got to keep an eye on going forward. So look at it from a long term and zoom out a bit, because these, hopefully you're not in short-term investing strategies. You're looking at long term, trying to understand that. Talking about long term and maybe where the direction is going on the gaming side, let's jump over to Palworld. Now, Palworld is not a blockchain game. Very viral, launched on Xbox, PC. This one is one that has really started to move around. And what's happening here is it's identified the opportunity that some of these emerging games, like a Web3 game, could go in this direction. And if you look at what's going on with Microsoft, I'll show you something here. So remember, Microsoft laid off quite a few, so staff from its video game workforce. What are they going to do with this restructure? Are they repositioning maybe to look at a new era of how games are being developed? Remember what I said about Palworld? Very small team, been able to get viral very quickly. Microsoft and others are watching what's been happening. We just showed a big video on this to talk about a comparison of why we couldn't see a Web3 game like Illuvium go in this direction. So this is a big deal because when you look at Phil Spencer, he was playing Palworld. Now, who is Phil Spencer? Well, Phil Spencer is one of the leads that pretty much runs the gaming strategy at Microsoft Xbox. And if this is the case, if Microsoft is, if you kind of just look at where maybe the puck is going here for a minute, sports term, you look at, is Microsoft lining up to maybe do an acquisition? And could they be looking at projects and upstarts like what Palworld was able to do in the Web3 space? So all of this starts to get very intriguing in terms of new strategy going forward. There's a lot happening in the space right now, so make sure and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And if you're not in the Diamond Circle, get in that. It's one of the best ways to get additional content. It's our email connection to you when things happen, something's breaking on the internet. That's where we reach out to first. So make sure and join that. And of course, if you're not following me on X, it's @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.